My name is Akello Stone. I'm an adjunct professor of sociology and a visual sociologist. I seriously never realized until later in life that even as a child, I was always super observant of things that went on around me and super inquisitive about people. I found people to be particularly interesting, so much that I would find time to observe people in their natural environment. I was a people watcher, and I still am a people watcher, but it's not just watching and it's not just watching in the visual context to see what they're wearing and things. It's really the interactional dynamics that they play, and whatever I see is what I use as a tool for understanding people and trying to bridge the gaps really between people amongst themselves and within themselves. There's really multiple dimensions in visual sociology from my perspective. There's looking at the social world and taking observations and gaining an understanding by the analysis of those observations. That's kind of the critical inquiry. There's the creation aspect, where you actually create visual media that sends a message and allows people to understand conceptual ideas that perhaps when they were written down in academic ease, like, people don't really understand them. Now, as a professor, I'm well aware that students don't read like they should. I wish they would, because there's great depth and richness in reading. So how can I still almost get them interested in reading and going into depth in a subject? I start with where they are, and where they are is taking in the world through what they see. So if I can start there and start to make them aware of what the things that what they see have hidden meanings. Sometimes the meanings are subliminal, sometimes they're more direct, and sometimes there's so much information that comes at us, we have a very difficult time discerning what is true and what is not. Sociology has been somewhat of a conservative field of study that is definitely rooted in deep theoretical constructs, very wordy, very academician-oriented, which I enjoy that. I love an intellectual challenge, and I think going to college, that's what I wanted, but the masses are not going to college. So how can we take things that are already available and use those as a platform for igniting intellectualism through description, through observation, and then ultimately through creation? And there's the other thing about taking visual imagery and producing videos on sociological topics with your students. But then the question was posed to me. I'm an avid film watcher, and I believe films are a very strong, powerful force in influencing the way people think. It brings meaning. Like, I can watch any film pretty much and say, if it's a good film, of course, and be able to give you like one sentence of what I feel that film is doing. Can everybody else do that? Not necessarily. Is that embedded in every film? Not necessarily. And because it's not, then I start to question, as a society, we've really left filmmakers to be sociologists, to tell these stories, to write, in a way, visual narratives about the meaning of our lives and about society and all those things that we study about. You know, we study about these things in sociology. We study about social problems in gender and race and ethnicity and social class and population demographics and implications of all these things over time. And, you know, we can get really fascinated by it, and some people just don't get it. But you put it in a visual format like a film, and even though they don't really think that's what they're getting, they ultimately are getting those messages in a different way. So I would like to be someone who comes from sociology, who creates media and content that can educate and entertain and inform all at the same time. So it's like a filmmaker and a sociologist could be doing primarily the same thing, why they create film and video projects, but they're coming from completely different angles. A filmmaker, probably when you go to filmmaker, I didn't go to film school, but I know filmmakers, a lot of it is on production of revenue. It's a product. It's something that you're selling. When you teach and you supply information, you're selling the credits, but you're not necessarily selling the propaganda in the way. It's not something like, I'm going to make like $200,000 this year because I'm covering these topics. You know, it's kind of flatline, whereas the money-making potential for a film can be huge. So to what degree is the film that's being created nurturing the intellectual development of people, nurturing their awareness, or is it just something like junk food? You know, there's a lot of junk food out there. Let's compare it to that. I love food. I'm a foodie. Even in my lectures, I like to compare things to food. People can relate to food. It's non-denominational, has nothing to do with anything demographic. You know, people need to eat. You know, when reality television came out, like, I think that my earliest experience with that was The Real World and MTV. And I don't even know what year it was. I think it was like 25 years ago, to be honest with you. And I found that so compelling. I just said, oh, it's reality unfolding and I get to see it. And then over time, as I became more knowledgeable about production and about what really goes on, I kind of became sour on it in a way because I wanted it to be reality so bad. But then I also learned that, you know, reality in itself over long periods of time could be kind of boring to watch. It's like watching a security camera like all day long, waiting for something to happen. And so what happens with reality TV is, number one, is they only edit and they cut all the parts that are kind of boring and not compelling. So then you have a truncated version of reality. In sociological documentary filmmaking, you're really doing what reality TV should do, but also what they're looking for. In a reality TV show, what are they looking for? They're looking for ways to entertain people so that they watch, and so that when people watch, then advertisers can sell their products and then everybody's happy to some degree. With the sociological documentary filmmaking, it's really about capturing the essence of things. It's illuminating these sociological concepts that if they're only written down and we're not applying them to things that we see, then they can be lost. Those ideas can be lost. We need to see ideas actualized in a daily basis in order to really understand them. Or else it becomes like this conceptual idea. You know, reality TV takes the most extreme. Like, they don't even want to put you on TV if you're not the most extreme. I believe there's a certain Hawthorne effect when you become a cast member that they call you in a reality show. And I firmly believe that even if someone is part of, let's say, a deviant subculture and that's what the show is about, they will take it to the extreme above and beyond what they actually really do. But they do that because they want to participate in the process. They don't want to be turned away. They don't want to be cut from the project, because the Hawthorne effect kind of tells us that if people feel important and they feel, part of something big, they're going to perform. And I think that that's all kind of performance. I've yet to see a depiction of a homosexual male on mainstream TV who is masculine, who does not exude stereotypes, who could ultimately pose a physical threat or physical, intellectual, or mental threat to a heterosexual man. There's something about the characters I call them safe. They're safe. They don't represent, the range. And that's part of the problem with the depiction of homosexual men on TV, is there's a huge range. But if you do a range where people begin to question what they have control over in terms of knowledge, like people want to know something, they feel like they want to know. So you put out characters out there, this is a gay person, he's completely harmless, he won't disrupt anything, and I don't know, the thing is would you rather not have anybody gay at all on TV, or someone that represents just a small percentage who's not the range? That's the thing that I kind of grapple with. Maybe it's a slow process that will eventually happen. I'm not really sure how that's going to play out, but I think it does kind of, that discussion does lend itself to, again, the idea of representation of, let's say, deviant, let's call them deviant subcultures or cultural groups, people who are not part of the mainstream. You know, let's be honest, every stereotype, you could go and find somebody who met that stereotype. And if that's the only thing that people see, that's the stereotype that they see, it's been confirmed, reaffirmed through media, and then it becomes supported in that person's belief system. Kind of like that. It's like the capitalization of the exploitation of a small percentage of people. And I mean, they should have a voice too. I'm not saying that the most extreme people should not have a voice, but they should, there should be a range. There should be a demonstration of a range, because again, that creates the gray areas, you know. Let's be honest, we still live in a highly polarized society. Black, white, straight, gay, rich, poor. These gray areas almost have no voice, and they, you know, even the identity classification of people in those areas themselves, they don't even know how to identify themselves because they haven't been given choices. It's like having you know, 4 races listed on an application and you could choose just one. Not only does that limit a person's identity, but it tells people that this is how simplistic things are. I remain really optimistic that there's like a new regime of sociologists who are going to naturally gravitate towards the construction and interpretation analysis of visual imagery. That will be their conduit. That will be something that they were immersed in as they have gone through their education. That's something they're going to be immersed in their personal life on a daily basis. And so if they're able to capitalize on that which they've already been doing and use it to advance the field, use it to maintain the integrity, it's really not interfering with the original ideas and concepts and theories and things that are developed. It's a conduit for illuminating those in a new way so that you can reach more people, and so that we can ultimately counterbalance these negative images, these destructive, exploitative images, and counterbalance it in a way so that people now have a choice. It's kind of like, you know, fast food, fast food, fast food, and then you come up here and then all of a sudden there's like a salad restaurant, right? But then the next thing you know, people start going to the salad restaurant, then you have to open up another one, right? People have a choice. Give people a choice. Give people a choice to eat junk food or salad. Don't just give them junk food. Visual sociology offers in the digital age choices for people to counterbalance all the influences. And ultimately, I think what would happen is, I think that if visual sociology becomes stronger, it's going to have a greater influence on the mainstream media production to create content that is less exploitative. I'm not going to say not at all, right? There's always going to be, it's like TMZ, the TMZ world, right? Like TMZ is just, it is what, that's what it is. It's not going to transform into something meaningful and powerful and, you know, helpful to people's quality of life. It's just not going to happen. But can visual sociology as a field, as a discipline, as a process, as an application change those dynamics of those institutions that have already been implanted? Of course they can. You know, if we say that they can't, then we're really denying ultimately what we as sociologists are trying to do. We're not just trying to create knowledge and understanding for our own purposes, but we're doing it because because society is not static. And if we don't come in and inject some things, it'll continue to move in this direction that most of us know is not a good thing. And that's it. It's a wrap.